sympathy for another.
Okay, so now we got everyone here, so we could talk about exteriors. Fantastic movie. Love the three stories, and just so you guys know, I did see the first two earlier this year, thanks to Mark. So I finally got to see the third story. But overall, man, this is a great film, and it was great to see Kenny and Shane and Lex return for this one, but more supporting roles this time to the new characters. And what was it like working with Mark again? And for the new guys, what's it like working with Mark?
I mean, I love working with Mark. It's always a lot of fun. So to get to do it again is just a true pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, well, and Mark is very respectful, I find, of letting the actors find a way to explore and experiment. He's always I've always felt like he's given me a lot of space to discover something that neither of us really planned on beforehand, and that's always been probably about the best thing working with him.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me, even though I could probably land on a more accurate word, is like it's a very forgiving process. So it lends itself to discovery, and there's no wrong move. You may have to kind of dial it in and find something that's stronger, but I never felt like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I deliver that line that way? Or there's no wrong and right in Mark's process, which is super liberating. And actually not, I don't experience that a lot, I find. Yeah, just kind of like this really fluid, forgiving way of working.
All right.
I was really impressed with.
Go ahead, Diogo.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I was gonna say I was really impressed by how efficient all the shoots were and how small a crew we had, and the intimacy that brought, and that just with romantic scenes and everything, it just made it feel smaller and give us room to play that way.
Yeah, and I actually I don't remember when I met you, Mark, but it was a while ago through correspondence because I actually had worked on a project a long time ago, many years ago, with his partner, or I don't know if it's co-producing partner or co-whatever.
Co-owner of the
co-owner, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
co-owner, Mark Balunas. And I had worked with him on something, and then I think our circles just kind of did this. We're like missing each other. I was in Los Angeles when he was up here and stuff like that. So I was so excited to get to join this project because I had seen the original. I had seen the series. I had seen a lot of the other stuff that he had done before. So it was really cool to get on board and finally work together on something. And was really thankful for it. And I agree with what everyone has said. It was very forgiving. It was very intimate. And it was just a really great experience overall. He trusts his actors, which I think is very, very good for a great director.
Yeah, it felt totally natural, like the chemistry. And we're gonna start breaking them down. We'll start with the first story, Wyatt, and it was I did not recognize Christian Gabriel from Crisis Hotline with that new look. I'm like, so I thought that was pretty cool that he got to sport a new look, and him and Matthew and Jacob, I mean, it was great. I mean, we got to see him and Matthew as best BFFs, and then we get to see him with Jacob here, and that's when things really amp up. So, and I like the fact that it brings the moral compass of, do I betray my best friend just to get back with this guy, or do I respect the boundaries? I mean, that's what I felt. That's what the deal with Wyatt is. He's questioning his moral compass, and despite the fact that he still has these feelings for Shane, does he act on them, or does he feel like he can't do that? Does he have to do that? And that's what made it vital. It felt like a love triangle, like unexpected love triangle, and unknowingly. But the first story was really great.
Yeah, I want to. It's interesting what Matt said. Yeah, I definitely remember seeing Matt in that web series, and I always thought he was very good. And so I kind of bookmarked him. And Mark, my producing partner, had said he was a very good actor to work with, always prepared. And so I had always bookmarked him, kind of like if the right thing came along, I'd love to work with him. And so when this story came up, Matt was my first choice, actually, kind of. It was, in a way, it was like, yeah, Matt's perfect for this, exactly kind of for the part. And I knew he would work well with Jacob and Christian. It was great getting Christian back. The actor I had cast that I was interested in using for that film was the same actor that was going to be in Brotherly Lies, actually. And unfortunately, once again, he had a real he had a physical injury that just would not allow him to shoot. He was having like knee replacement surgery, and so luckily Christian was perfect, and it worked out really, really well. So that was great. But it was fun getting Christian to play two parts, kind of, a double side to that, and that was the key to that was. And I love that opening shot with him and Matt. That beautiful Steadicam shot just came out so perfectly. Really, really did. And that really sets the tone, kind of, that it's going to be about this give and take. And then to throw Shane into the mix and see where Shane was 2.5 years later, I thought was really fun to play with. And I love what Jacob said. I said, so, Jacob, how are you going to do this? And he said, well, I'm going to play Shane with, you can correct me, Jacob, if I got this wrong, but the same, it's like a book, the same spine, but a different cover, and I thought that was really interesting how to bring that to it. But yeah, that's it was really fun getting to watch Christian play opposite that of something completely different from Crisis Hotline.
Yeah, definitely. So Jacob, what was it like? Because you had the big scene with Christian, and it was just great. It felt like I was watching a play between the two of you. You just got this dialogue just between the two of you, and it kind of brings that tension. What was it like working with Christian on your end?
Oh, well, Christian's a really good guy. He's a really good actor. And Mark actually had us do some rehearsals a couple of weeks beforehand that really helped us sort of tune into it. Yeah, it was a little bit beforehand, and it helped us kind of tune in, because I'd seen him before. I'd seen his work, but I'd never actually worked with him, and it was good to get that chance to sort of figure each other out.
Yeah, I hear that. That's definitely, and Matthew's like the third guy. He's Lonnie, and he's got the best friend in Wyatt, but yet he's got this relationship with Shane. In a way, I felt Shane was kind of growing up from Brotherly Lies. He's kind of, he's also questioning, should I go back to how I was before? Should I got this chance to start something new. And, finally by the end of the story, we get the answer. And I think it's great because it felt like Shane really kind of grew up, after what happened in Brotherly Lies. And to find, so let's see how this goes with Lonnie. It could be something wonderful, you know what I mean? But I think that's what really played out really well.
Yeah, I see him very much the same way. I've always seen Shane as the type of guy who is smart enough to know what's wrong with him, but not really strong enough to change it. And at the end of Brotherly Lies, that was like the first time where he kind of was able to go, okay, I'm actually going to make some changes. I'm actually going to start growing up. And in this movie, this is the first time he's actually had that, like, a challenge to his newfound maturity. And congrats to him. I think he rises to the occasion, even if it takes him a little longer than it should have.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I think the one line I really loved was when Wyatt goes, shoes. Like he sees the shoes. Like, what? I like your shoes. I'm like, oh, like that. I thought that was kind of a funny little bit to it. Like, like kind of like a bookmark to it. I go, I like your shoes. And that was it. And then
yeah,
I thought that was pretty funny. So then we'll go into the second story, Jason. So I think we lost Jose, but that's okay.
I hope he comes back.
Yeah. But Julian, what was your experience working with Mark? I know you mentioned it was forgiving, but what was it like working with Jose as well? Because
I had I figured out that Jose was already attached, so I was kind of lurking around, and I was like, well, okay, he's a working actor. He seems like a nice guy. He seems like he'll be there for me. And then we had a preliminary rehearsal. I don't think, then this is before I was told that I had booked the job. So I still very much went in there being like, all right, final round, you know, the lightning round. And so that was my first time meeting Jose. And he had such an openness to him. I mean, I'd anticipated him being present, but there was such a generosity there that made it easy to feel affectionate towards him and to have like a sort of crush on him. Maybe in a way it's best he's not here. I don't know what his reaction to this would be, but he was such a open spirit. And so that was definitely my point of entry for this whole story. I was like, done. This is totally someone that would have made an impression on me, that I carry around with me, that I yearn for, that I've wished on countless stars that I run into again. And then that's where the story starts. It's like, all right, your wish is granted. Here's this guy that left such a deep impression on you. So he made it easy because he's someone that just does have that level of attractiveness. And I don't even mean just physically. He's just a really accessible actor. So it felt easy on that front.
Now, this story was very intriguing because you thought Jason thought he knew him, and he gives this little story, and that's what I really liked. I like that we got your backstory too. Like, we didn't know much about Jason from the beginning, but then as the story goes on, we get to learn more about who you are, who Jason is, and then that's when he finally says, "Well, I'm not who you think I am. My name's Kenny." And but what I really liked was it didn't have to go the romantic route. It just showed like he just wanted to hear your story. He knew something was going on, and he respected you for that. And then I like the fact that throughout the night, you guys ended up bonding together. And it gets to the point where you're like, "Can I have your number?" I mean, you don't have to have my number. And he's like, "Just give me your number." Because he sees someone as a platonic friend in a way. It could end up being like an "I love you, man" type thing, a bromance. Who knows? That sort of outcome.
Well, that was I got to weigh in a little bit here because that was what you're exactly saying was kind of the inspiration for this whole series of stories, which was these characters from Brotherly Lies are faced with a similar moral quandary, so to speak, and they make different choices. And so that's where Kenny's character drives this story, because Kenny certainly made different choices in a similar way in Brotherly Lies. And with Julian, I was another one. I was so glad I got to work with Julian because he was another one that had been on my radar since he had auditioned for Crisis Hotline. And I didn't cast him, but I said, this guy's really good. Again, another one that I bookmarked and I followed, and I wanted to work with him. And very similar with Matt Bridges, which was when this part was written, I said, boy, he's really good. I had two other actors that were kind of in the mix. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to give Jose kind of a real say in who his co-star was going to be, because this was a two-hander. The chemistry had to be right. It had to be exactly right. And I really wanted Jose to have an input on it. And so I had rehearsed the other two, but I always personally wanted Julian. And I was really hoping that Jose would come on board with that. And if he was going to say no, I was going to try and talk him into it. And fortunately, like you said, after they had worked together, Jose said, "Oh, he's the guy. Yeah, this is the guy. Absolutely. No question." I said, "Good. You can stay, Jose. Very good." And it did work perfectly. Because with your character, Julian, which I loved what you did so much with it, because that Jason isn't a victim. He's not he's not some sad sack person. And that was what was really important, that had to naturally come through. I didn't want the audience to look at him as a pitiful person at all. He had to have a natural integrity and dignity to it. And Julian embodies that pretty easily. So it was terrific. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I like being called dignified. That's not an adjective that normally comes up. So thank you.
Yeah, I felt like the first and third stories were more the love triangles, but then the middle piece is like kind of like the breather in between, but then in a way, because you said it. I think you just said it best, Mark. You know, we get to learn who Jason is, and you know, he's not this guy who had to, you know, like you said, he's not sad. Like he said, his mom accepted him for who he was, and then once she was gone, you know, in a way, he felt a sense of freedom in a way, but at the same time, you know, he didn't know how to react to his mom's death. So, you know, he just figured, I'm just going to live it up and do this thing. And, you know, he thought he met Kenny at this one place. And, you know, of course, it wasn't Kenny, it was another guy, you know, it was real. But, you know, I just like that whole notion that where it's like Kenny could have easily fallen in love with Jason in a way. But it's kind of good that it took that platonic route as well. I think it made it more the better.
Well, and they're both very, very lovable, so it's no surprise.
I also want to mention that's something that really spoke to me when I read it. That's not a dynamic you see a lot on screen between two gay men. You just don't. I mean, it's so rare to just see two platonic relationship. Not to say it was entirely platonic, obviously, as you said. There's undercurrents there.
Yeah.
But just two friends. That really appealed to me.
That's why I mentioned earlier about the movie Chrissy Judy, because that's what it was. It wasn't a romance movie. It was like him dealing with losing his best friend, like a platonic best friend and drag queen partner, and it's just him trying to find himself in the process. And you know, eventually, like his best friend, hopefully his best friend will reunite with him as even just his best friend. He sees him as like a brother more than a romance thing. And that's something like you said. That's like a breaking of the trope usually. You know, usually in LGBTQ films, you always have to have some sort of romance in it. But your story didn't have that, which I think worked.
Well, I hope so. I think so.
I know it worked. I think it worked.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. Well, and you are right in that it is meant to be kind of I don't want to say a breather. I wouldn't quite say that, but I can see where you would say that. But it is meant to be different because again, it's reflecting the choices Kenny has made and would make. And Kenny is, I like all the characters very much, but in a way, Kenny is, the real good guy. He's the nice guy, the one that wouldn't hurt a fly, or he'd rather, snap his own fingernails off than hurt somebody.
I think it's safe to say he's the most level-headed of the group.
Well, maybe they have their points, but Kenny is finds himself in this really unusual quandary, and I actually really enjoyed figuring out a way that character would navigate that. Yeah. And Jose also gave me some good feedback on the script originally, which was helpful, and I think we captured Kenny very well, just like we captured Shane in that situation very well, and that was. Kind of the whole impetus of this project was this is my first attempt at kind of world building, taking these characters and putting them in different situations with different characters. And it was a very interesting experience, very interesting creative experience for me.
Yeah, which then brings us to the third and final story, which in my opinion is the most insane of the stories because this one just went crazy. The Dr. Lush story. Yep, there's Diogo just going nuts right now with it because he's all a part of it. But we got Pano back as Lex, and I like his story too. Now that he's trying to, we saw with the aftermath of what happened with Broly Lives with Lex, and now he's seeing a therapist who has this crazy obsession with him, and also you see that the doctor's married to Diogo's character, and then you see this tension between them, like it's not going too well. But then there's something very sinister in the works. Down that road, and so much happens, and this was the most, like I said, it's the most insane story of the three because this one had more twists and turns than like I would have thought. But my question's for Diogo, man. What was it like working with Mark and Pano and Peter on this one? Peter. Because I mean, you guys are great in this, and this was just insane.
Yeah, it was exactly that insanity that drew me to it. The second I saw the twists and turns, I was like, ooh, okay, this is what I'm about. But it was a great time. I feel like I gelled so quickly with everyone, and everyone was just so prepared and professional, and immediately felt like I jumped into a group of friends. And like Panos is just such a nice, likable guy that I feel like he makes the whole everything work. And Peter's so good at having that like that soft we're in a relationship thing in the beginning, and then he's so good at cranking up the intensity with those eyes that he made it real easy for me to just feel things and react and just be there.
So
And
yeah, exactly. And so I gotta ask Mark, what brought on this to really amp up the insanity to like wrap it up? What brought that to mind with
Well, I got to give credit to Panos here because when I was developing Lex's story, Panos and I had probably 3 good long phone conversations about where this story could go. And he wanted it. He said we should crank this up a little bit, you know. So he was the one that wanted it to be a little more sinister, a little more intense. And as soon as he gave me some really good, again, kind of some good pinpoint stuff, it all wrote itself. It all started to come together very, very clearly. And with Diogo, that was a really great. Diogo, you were a wonderful find. I was so glad I found you because I was looking at a lot of actors. This was on this project on part 3. That's where I was looking at a lot of headshots. I was looking at a lot of reels to find that character to play opposite Peter. I always wanted Peter Stickles. I'm a huge fan of Short Bus. I always liked that film, and I always thought he was wonderful in it. And he just has, like Diego said, that natural intensity in the eyes that you don't know what's going on behind him, which was exactly what called for Dr. Lesh. And he was wonderfully, he loved the script too, luckily. I asked him if I could send it to him, and he said yes, and he was on board fairly quickly. He found it a very interesting challenge. And with Diogo, I was searching through a lot of stuff, and I came across Diogo's reel randomly off of IMDb Pro. And I said, oh, this guy's really different. He's got a whole lot of different things he can do. And that always intrigues me when I can see a huge variety in an actor's reel, from funny stuff to some serious stuff to everything in between. And I had narrowed it kind of similar to Julian. I had it narrowed down to Diogo and 2 other people. And once I interviewed Diogo and had him read, I think I said I'd get back to you in a couple days. But then I said, I don't know. He's the guy, you know. I mean, I'm just going to tell him now. You know, why wait a couple days? And it proved to be a very, very good choice. And you know, one thing I want to say, you know, whenever, like Diego said, we work with small crews, we work quickly. It's always a little bit interesting bringing a new person into the fold, so to speak, because if you bring in an actor and suddenly they're not prepared or they have issues, it can really throw everything off. And so I think I've gotten pretty good at knowing who can work with who well, and I trust my instincts very well. And
yeah,
so
your track record speaks for itself. But hands down.
But Diogo just fit perfectly, and I since I'm here, I'd love to ask you, Diogo, a little bit. I wanted to give you different stuff, you know, because you've done so many different things, and I really hoped I was able to show a little different side of you in the movie, because you're really terrific, and that was fun getting to see you do something different than, I mean, as varied as your stuff is. It was fun trying to come up with different things for you as well. So as far as the insanity, I got to give credit to Panos on that a little bit, as far as just, let's ramp it up. Let's not shy away from this, because they all have that crazy coincidence in common. That's part of the theme of this. And let's really push that as far as we can, and without it being silly, you know, without it being ridiculous. I didn't want that. So I think it works very, very well.
Yeah, this was very tense. And I think the only thing with Lex was, you know, it's just basically like he couldn't tell his real name yet because he wanted to make sure that he was comfortable with the guy. Like, so he, you know, so it's basically like I changed my name to this, but I'm going to tell him who I really am. And, you know, I think that's where he questions, so like, was it worth telling him who he is? But then we learn something else with Dr. Lesh and Michael, and it's just like, and but then you have the fourth character coming in who's saying, Lex did this, and he's, you know, um, he wants to change things now because something happened, because of the whole situation, and that's why I think this is like the most tension filled of the three. Where the first one had like a crazy tension between Shane and Wyatt. Second one had very little tension between Kenny and Jason, but this one really was most. This one could have been a movie. This one could have been a feature on its own in a way. This third story, but I mean, but it was still nice. It was still greatly timed in terms of wrapping it all up and bringing Lex's story, Lex's aftermath to life as well. And it's just, man, it was just crazy.
One more thing too. That was another thing that I really liked about Diogo. Again, similar to Julian, I wanted the character of Michael to be someone that the audience could like, actually. That, he's not a bad person at all. Michael is a likable guy. He's a decent husband. There's issues and there's rifts, but he's not some evil scheming person. The audience has to naturally not hate him. And that was important as well. And Diogo does that perfectly, which fits very nicely.
I felt like with Michael, like he didn't, you said it best. I mean, he just saw he was having issues with Peter. And so, Peter's character. So it was basically like, what if this things don't work out with my husband? Should I try seeing someone else to see what would happen? Bring that cautionary tale. And, unfortunately, we all know what happens. Those who saw the film knows what happens, but still, it's like, I think it was more like Michael was a victim in a way because he got himself in the situation. But at the same time, you're also thinking, Lex is a victim as well. So, it's like basically what's the end game of everything,
Oh, there is an end game, that's for sure. And one thing that Panos wanted to do too, that I remember, is we knew we wanted Lex's character to have gotten better over the last 2.5 years. He's worked on himself. He has improved. But there had to be some levels once in a while where it still showed his insecurity, still showed what he was struggling with a little bit. He wasn't all the way there yet, and this is the type of situation that tests his mental health, obviously. And we came up with a way that we think is believable again for that character, that would have, in that situation, would have that's how he would have handled it. And it is so interesting to see it now. I mean, I can't believe we filmed the first one, gosh, all the way back in September. And hopefully because I'm hoping that it will debut at Palm Springs, the Palm Springs Film Festival. Yeah, fingers crossed on that. That would be great, because that would literally be like a year exactly from when we started shooting the first movie. So 1 year later, it would debut there. It's entered in about 3 other ones right now after that, so we'll see what happens. And then very shortly after that, it will be out into the world, without a doubt. And it's really going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. And but I'm excited. I'm also excited to see what people will think of it, and how it hits them, because these are 3 different stories, even though they kind of tie in somewhat, you could say. But
I
love this cast.
Basically, you don't, like, for those who are going to watch this, you don't necessarily have to watch Brotherly Lies to see this movie. You can watch this as a standalone. But it would be essential to watch. I would say put this with Brotherly Lies. Watch it as a double feature. Just to see, because if you see Brotherly Lies, you'll easily get the connection. But at the same time, you can watch this as a standalone for those who haven't seen Brotherly Lies, and then watch Brotherly Lies afterwards, and they realize, oh, those those are the same guys from the exteriors. So it works out like all ways.
I think it could be watched in either order, and it would be interesting. But not totally required. You're right, but you should. Everybody
Yes,
should.
You should. You should.
Absolutely. Brotherly Lies is everywhere. You can find Brotherly Lies on a lot of streaming services now, and so you should. You absolutely should.
And I think what would be really interesting, maybe after exteriors, if it does really well, bring these guys back for an actual sequel to Brotherly Lies. You know, have like a reunion to see what happened. Them talking about their experiences, because who knows if these guys seen each other, you know, in exteriors, if that was to happen again, and bring the new characters in as well, like, you know, bring Diogo back, telling you know, like, well, this happened with Lex, Lonnie back with Shane, you know, have Lonnie and Shane have a full relationship. That's what I think. I'm putting it down. They should do that.
And then
you know,
Aliens
Kenny,
Land. That's what we got.
Yeah, Kenny brings Jason. Like, this is my buddy Jason. You know, like do that. This could be like a universe, like a.
It literally is, though. It's the BLCU. It's the Brotherly Lies Cinematic Universe. It's officially starting. Yep. Spinoffs on spinoffs on spinoffs. Exactly.
There you go. I think Matthew just nailed it right on the head with that.
Well, and also I gotta, you know, talk about universes. I mean, all these guys on this panel here, I mean, are doing amazing creative stuff on their own. I mean, you know, Diogo's got whalesplosion.com, which is fantastic. You know, I just saw Matt in a marvelous play in San Francisco. Great run. Julian's doing 10,000 things all the time. He's directing films, producing films, and my God, Jacob's YouTube channel is hilarious. I mean, these are creative forces here.
Yeah, Jacob missed this, so I'm going to bring this up. But I subscribe to your channel, and I watched your Josie and the Pussycats in Space video, and I was in tears laughing so hard because because you were dressed up as you were wearing the Josie and the Pussycats, like the ears and all that, and I was in tears, like just trying to listen to you like talk about the show, and I just couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, this is too funny to watch, but. I get so into
I definitely had to purchase that for the video. There's no way I had sexy cat ears on hand or anything like that.
Sure you didn't, Jacob. Sure you did.
And also, and you are right too. I mean, I am right now. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 things I'm trying to cook up right now, and I'm looking for excuses to work with all these guys again. Absolutely. So get ready, guys. There could be some PDFs coming to your email boxes.
Yep. Could be I think Matthew said it could be the beginning of the Brotherly Lies Cinematic Universe. Because I would love to see all these guys reunite for a new movie and possibly as the same characters. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. We will.
Well, I got to thank you guys again for showing up and talking about exteriors. Like I said, great movie. We're going to be kicking off Pride Month with this interview as well as the first review of exteriors, and really excited. I actually wrote it this morning, just so you know. I actually wrote the review, and I have it scheduled to post on Thursday, so it will be
awesome.
It will be up on Thursday, as will this interview. And we're celebrating Pride Month at World Film Geek, so check out worldfilmgeek.com. Check out the YouTube channel for exclusive interviews. We're going to have more of these Pride interviews, hopefully, down the road. And we had a big turnout last year, and hoping to do it again this year. And once again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk about this. And
thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Seriously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I want to be on your top 20 of 2020.
You just might be. You
put Brotherly Lies on last year's list, so yes, I want this one to make it.
Crisis Hotline was on the top 20 of, what was that,
2018, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And and Christian won best lead actor.
He did
awards that year. So,
but now you've got a tough choice. I don't want these actors to cancel themselves out with your awards. So
I might have to do a new award for best ensemble. I might have to.
Like Venice. The Venice Film Festival does.
Yeah, there you go. I might have to put that new award up this year. So
I like it.
But once again, thank you guys so much, and take care. Everyone has a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.